All right. Hi, everyone. How y'all doing today?
Hello.
Good.
Good. All right. So my name is Brady Maiden, and I'm here with you all for HIV Vaccine Awareness Day. So that's today, Thursday, May 18th. And so we are here to really just have an open conversation. And before we do that, I wanted to introduce myself again. So I'm Brady Maiden. I am the Community Science Program Manager here at the Southern AIDS Coalition. I have been with the Southern AIDS Coalition for a few months, so I'm a little fresh, I'm a little new, but the work is still very engaging for me, and I'm excited to be here. I have been in this space for about 2 years now, so I'm still learning and growing, but I am excited to continue to have these type of conversations. And with that, I'll pass it to my colleague, Jerissa.
Thank you, Brady. Happy HIV Vaccine Awareness Day indeed. I'm wearing red and I got my little button to celebrate and bring awareness. But my name is Jerissa Grenard. I'm the community educator and recruiter for the Vanderbilt HIV Vaccine Program. I've been involved at this site for a little over 5 years now, and I too, myself, am still learning and growing. So no matter where you are in the journey, there's still room for improvement, still room for education. And I think that's what initially led me here to this position.
Yes.
We'll pass it off to Abraham.
Hey, y'all. I'm Abraham Johnson. I am the Senior HIV Community Engagement Officer for Treatment Action Group. I've been working in the field of HIV for about 8 years now in different capacities, clinical research and making sure that communities are involved in research and is a passion of mine. So I'm happy to be here today to talk about HIV vaccines.
Thanks, Abe.
And I will pass it to Genario.
Hey everyone, my name is Genario Scott. I am the HIV vaccine research social media content creator ambassador. I am also a talk show host, media correspondent, radio personality, and I've been living with HIV for 8 years. And I got into this business because I felt like there wasn't enough education in our community regarding HIV and sexual health in general. So that's how I got in here, and I love it. I love inspiring, empowering, and educating people about the importance of sexual health and, of course, about HIV.
Yes, thank you all for joining. So as we say again, happy Vaccine Awareness Day. And so what we want to do in this conversation is really highlight the impact of the work that community members, advocates, and researchers are doing to find a safe, effective, and preventative HIV vaccine. And so we acknowledge that there's a lot of misinformation and lack of awareness of the progression of HIV vaccine trials. And so we are joined today from our folks from Treatment Action Group, Southern AIDS Coalition, the Vanderbilt HIV Vaccine Program, and also the influencer space to really discuss why a vaccine should be included within our preventative toolkit and how we can find new innovative ways to continue the work and spread the word. And so before we get into the real conversation, I need to know the tea, y'all. So let's start with an icebreaker. So the question is, so in the context of sexual health, so think about get ready with me. And so not necessarily getting ready with me, but more getting ready to get in the mood. So think of a song that describes your last moment of feeling prepared, and what song would it be? And y'all could also add extra details about how you get set up. The more the merrier, we want to know. So who wants to start it off?
Well, I can start off because I love this topic. I would say, for one, I have to have some good old Savage Fenty, body is good, some good old oils, good. When it comes to music, right now, I love music, but right now, and I'm kind of old school and new school, I'm in the mixture. So I would say the Temptations, Get Ready. Get ready. Hey, honey, get ready.
I love that. When I think about what I do to get ready, I definitely think about kind of setting the mood. I love lighting candles. I think lighting can be super impactful to getting in the mood. And then one thing that comes to mind that's on my playlist is Permission by Ro James. So I think, consent is sexy. I think asking and extending an invitation to play can be really fun. So that's something that comes to mind for me.
I love it. So I'll go next. I think I'm exploring my neo soul fine era, so I have to like bring it back with Untitled by D'Angelo. Yeah, I think it says enough. He's already asking how does it feel, but I do like candles. I do appreciate like it being at night, like a nice setup. I do like the ambient lighting. So yeah, that's how I get ready. What about you, Abe?
Wow, this question is so hard for me. I'm like, yeah, I was listening to
Oh,
y'all. I was like, what should I say? But wow, how do I get ready? So I'm gonna be honest, it depends on my vibe. If I'm in my lover boy season, I may listen to Virgo's Groove, Plastic Out the Sofa, Sit on It by Jasmine Sullivan and Ari Lennox. But if I'm just in my hot boy summer vibe, we can put on like we just flow interviews. We can have a brief conversation before, but like for the most part, we're just gonna like
get to
have fun, like get to it, you know. So I believe in being honest, and I think that and I also like you said, yours is consent. So hey, if you want to come and in and out, we can go. Then, or you want to have make love, then let's do it. Like,
I know that's
Yes, yes, I love that. So honestly, like that is literally the perfect like segue into our next conversation, kind of looking at the different approaches and the different ways we get ready also looks at how we should approach a toolkit. Not everything works for everyone, not everything is for everyone necessarily in how they want to focus on their prevention habits. And so that is why we're here today. And so before we even get to talking about what does my toolkit look like, we kind of need to understand what is a vaccine, what is it doing, how can I even incorporate this when it comes out. So with that, I wanted to ask Jerissa, how does a vaccine work and what might a preventative vaccine do?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. So really a vaccine works in trying to help teach the body how to recognize foreign viruses that don't belong in the immune system. So a way of doing this is kind of showing it a synthetic copy or a characteristic that you might see on an HIV virus. And in doing that, it'll help start this process that the immune system needs in order to bring in these healthier fighter cells, if you will, to help neutralize or kill or kind of rid the virus from the body. And sometimes when I present this concept, I have received questions around, oh, well, what do you mean by a synthetic copy? So there are no real parts of HIV in an HIV vaccine. And the research that we're doing, there's no parts of the virus in it at all. But if you want to think about it this way, if I were to show you a lock of hair or an eyelash or a fingernail, those are parts that you could really probably associate with a human being, but you can't talk to that person if there's only just an eyelash or a fingernail. And in the same way, there's also a concept of thinking about a car, just talking about a steering wheel or a speedometer. If I show you those items, you would think about a car, but you can't necessarily use those items to drive from California all the way to New York. So overall, a vaccine is designed to help teach your body how to recognize and fight invaders. That way, we ultimately want the body to be able to prevent and control infection if you ever have an exposure to the virus.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so when we think about cultivating and just like prevention overall, and how the trials are progressing, is this a vaccine to prevent HIV or is it to kill the virus already on contact? And you hinted at that prior in your answer, but if you could just further elaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my work specifically, we're working on a preventative vaccine, but that's not the only type of research that's being done today. So there are also therapeutic vaccines. And so that works with people who lie in that population who live with HIV. But more specifically to our research at Vanderbilt, we are working on a preventative and effective HIV vaccine. And so that would typically fall within the realm of people who are not living with HIV, and they're between the ages about 18 to 55, if you will. But there's definitely more than one way to be involved in research, no matter what your status is.
Wow. Okay, so I think another question I have then is like, there's so much research going on. So how can research organizations continue to partner with community organizations similar to Southern AIDS Coalition and Treatment Action Group to really disseminate this information?
I would say partnerships from the research institution. It's so important to help build relationships. You want to keep them and sustain them, not just when you're enrolling studies, but also really trying to identify what the needs of community organizations or what needs of the community in general. We definitely use this approach here at Vanderbilt in trying to help our communities thrive overall. That's essentially what we wanted to do, and that's a way that we try to navigate that is through lots of partnerships. So whether that's helping to bring awareness to another community event that's happening, or providing informational materials at an event, or setting up a booth to help bring more awareness to another organizational event, is how can we all win, and how can we all work together to get there.
Yeah, and I just kind of wanted to elaborate as far as partnerships. That was a really great point. So recently, the Southern AIDS Coalition has put together a Southern Science Community Education Series, and we actually partnered with the Vanderbilt HIV Vaccine site for our first one in Nashville. And so what was really amazing about it, and something I kind of want us to continue to do and partner in the future, is bringing research into community spaces is so impactful because it creates a different space or in a different, I would say, area for folks to have these type of conversations without feeling like, oh, there's a knowledge barrier between myself and a researcher and a scientist, or they're explaining information in a way that I cannot understand it, but being able to comprehensively like create a funnel for this information to go through and have folks be able to guide how they want this to be set up, the questions that they want to ask, the information that they want to retain and move forward into their larger community is something that I think is impactful. So bringing that information to these community spaces is something that Southern AIDS Coalition wants to continue to do. And I think we all should figure out, different innovative ways on how we can bring this to folks and not have folks feel the need to have to go out and continue to get this information, because I think that's also an issue. If this ain't in the 9 to 5, or I don't come across it on my way going to work, to the grocery store, you're not going to get it from me. I'm sorry, I don't have enough time, or there's just too much going on in my life for me to seek new information that I'm not necessarily being exposed to in my day to day. So I think that's really impactful. But Abe, Gennario, did you have any other comments about it?
Yeah, I do, Brady. I think it's kind of like adds what you were saying about partnership. Also, I believe in non-traditional partners. I think that is so many other ways in which we can engage communities and like those non-traditional partners, especially like content creators like Gennario, who can also disseminate information. There's HBCUs. There's so many other partners that aren't always at the table or at the beginning of discussions around research. So something that I find really important is like, how do we make sure that this message translates to all communities and not those what some would call like easy catch. So I love thinking of like new partners and how can messages about research be infused in their current messages. I think that if you care about your health, you should care about HIV. And I think that's like a message of mine. Like a lot of the pandemic showed us that people do care about their health because eventually everybody in some form wore a mask, right? So you think about it in some form of fashion, maybe someone will eventually take an HIV vaccine, but it may take some time, but it's just like, it's all about finding unique and those non-traditional partners who can amplify the message and to help communities.
Yeah, I would piggyback of Abraham, just definitely using those non-traditional partners. Like you said, keeping it and also going into those communities that you want to educate and seeing what their attention getters are. Like, how can I grab your attention? Again, HBCUs, content creators as myself. Also getting into those communities where there are those faces that people look at, like, is this like, and people that have those experiences, if people can't relate or grasp the emotion of that experience, then, you wouldn't get them. So just going into those non-traditional areas, using those non-traditional partners, and just making sure you put it in their face. The more they see it, the more it will stick, and the more that they will want to get engaged. And it's crazy because when things hit home, that's when you really grasp the information, or you really pay attention. So again, like myself, being in the community, being, a content creator, being, just make it someone that people can relate to. So also using those partnerships.
And you know what? Something that I instantly thought of, the importance of building trust. And I think that having familiar faces like you, Genario, and it really speaks volume, because we do know medical mistrust it still is a thing. It may not be as discussed, but when you think of discussion around an HIV vaccine, or you look at who is impacted by HIV, and we really want those communities to be the first adopters of the HIV vaccine. So, but it does take with building trust. So that's another important point, is like continuing to build trust.
And also ending those stigmas, because there's so many stigmas on it. Has a look, it has a face to it. And when you go against, again, those non-traditional of stigmas, it's like, dang, this person is living with HIV, but you wouldn't think it. So let me go check myself. Mm-hmm. Let me check my partner. Let me ask my partner, so just also breaking those stigmas of those non-traditionals of what it looks like.
Yes. And that actually leads me to my next question, Genario, for you. So like when we talk about non-traditional partners and just really like you being a familiar face, so as an ambassador, did you know about the HIV vaccine trials prior to becoming one with their program? And how has this influenced the content you create now?
Wow. So funny story. No, I did not know that HIV vaccine research was even a thing. I didn't even know that HIV vaccine was a thing. I actually, when I received the invite and the email, I was like, yo, this is a scam. Like someone's trying to get my information. Like it goes back to that medical information's like, nah, this can't be true. But as I began to do my research and also gain the research that I was given, I understand the process of HIV vaccine research. I was amazed, and I grew into it even more. And then when I learned about Red Ribbon Registry and how that worked and how easy that is, I was actually sold. So then getting into the partnership, the ambassadorship, and using my content, using my profile, I was like, okay, I can do this. So it did influence my content by making sure that I push out information to my community regarding the answer, the information about HIV vaccines that I wasn't aware of. I feel like if I didn't know, I'm sure it's other people out there that's not aware of it. So my content changed, like, what is HIV vaccine research? How can individuals get involved? That's answers. How to use Red Ribbon Registry. And then also ways on ending the stigma about vaccine research, because when you think about vaccines or vaccine research, like in our community, it's like a no. It's a no. So just finding ways to take away the guard and break those barriers, and just knowing and educating people about the importance about HIV vaccines and the research.
I really love I feel like we all kind of hit on such important topics, but between creating trust, being consistent, eliminating barriers, and talking about stigma, and just being unafraid of having that, starting the discussion, starting the conversation. Because I feel like oftentimes in my own experiences, that's probably just as the first step that needs to happen. I've had friends in communities where they're just kind of so used to like masking, if you will, or because they're afraid of what people might say, or kind of being chastised or just judged and looked at differently, and really have to come in with an open mind and create these safe spaces of really, we're just here to learn, to be curious, and figure out what we can do to help build our communities and start not only this healing process, but also we want to make sure that we're all at the table. To what Abraham's point earlier, we all want to make sure that whenever a vaccine is rolled out, that it's readily made available and prioritizes all communities, not just specific ones.
Absolutely.
No, Jerson, that's an amazing point. And honestly, to highlight, that icebreaker again, as we get to know ourselves and what we want and what we like and how we get ready, we should also feel comfortable and feel trusting to be in these spaces and to have familiar faces that help us to navigate how to continue to have these conversations and how to build that trust. And so
Right.
with that,
And you know what? Something that I just thought of, Brady. So
yeah.
it's so interesting that each one of us had a different way that we got ready. So like I
Mm-hmm.
think about translating it into like how to disseminate vaccine research information. Also, when a vaccine is available, how do we make sure it is uniquely like provided to everyone? Like, so it's because everyone has their way of doing things.
Right. And
Yeah.
everybody.
True.
Yeah, it's really just us like, oh, that's cool. Everybody had a different kind of style.
Right. Yeah. So
That's
yeah,
so accurate though, how we all receive information differently.
yeah,
It's like you just blew my mind, Abraham. Of course, that is also going to need to be customized as well, so that we make sure that everyone has access to that information. It
Yeah.
can't just be one-way traffic, because then you'll only reach a specific community. That's where we're going to run into some challenges where not everyone is receiving that information, or you'll run into like, oh, I didn't know this was available. Like, how did you find out about it? Well, if you're not in particular spaces, how would you know about it? Even in thinking about social media platforms, like
Mhm.
different people resonate with different platforms in that way. So if
right.
you hear about it on Facebook, but your friend is only using TikTok or Snapchat, like how would you know?
And it goes back to also what he said, going into those non-traditional places and reaching people. It's like you reach one, teach one, you touch the masses. So like just really using every space that's available. Like people learn differently, people do things differently. Like you have to go into those rooms.
Mhm.
No, honestly, yeah. And that honest, like, oh, I'm just so blown by this conversation. I can't even form words right now, y'all. But no, like that literally drives home the point that it's like it's being familiar. If like when going back to the point of Generio, like when you first got your initial email about joining the ambassador program, like is it a scam? Is it not a scam? And being able to be like, okay, actually, I know Generio does content. Let me go look on Instagram and find it that way and then share it out. So continuously like making sure we're creating familiar spaces for folks to get information is like really impactful. So I think the
Right.
next steps would be, so how does everyone get involved? So how do we become a participant in a study? Generio mentioned the Red Ribbon Registry, and just also how do we get involved and how do other folks get involved in the work overall?
Yeah, I think it's important that we also highlight that, there's more than one way to get involved other than joining a study. We definitely want to let people know that there are many different ways that they can. One way is through volunteering for a community advisory board. Here at Vanderbilt at the national location, we have a board that meets virtually once a month to help discuss our protocols, our consent forms, to ensure that the research that we're doing and disseminating at our site is being carried out thoroughly in a way that they also serve as an entity that protects participants as well. So is this meaningful work? Is it impactful work? And if so, what is it that we hope to learn from it? And also, there's also opportunity to receive different types of training. So if you're not familiar with research or you're very new to it, we still welcome you. Your viewpoint is just as important. You don't have to be an epidemiologist in order to be a part of the community advisory board or get involved in HIV vaccine research. I think a lot of the times that can feel very overwhelming, that you want to get involved in something that's very foreign to you. But Brady mentioned earlier, it can be overwhelming if you're not familiar with some of the terms. And so scientists have to be and researchers have to be very intentional about making information palatable and digestible, which it can be, because community has proven over and over again that they can understand the concepts. But when you get lost in this jargon because you're lost in this research world, you need to be able to help bring that down to, or not even bring it down, you need to be able to customize it for the audiences that you're speaking to, because everyone's able to understand that. But being involved in the community advisory board, even helping to start a conversation like, hey, have you heard about HIV vaccine research? Have you heard about this organization at Vanderbilt that works with the HIV Vaccine Trials Network? There are different sources that people can go to, whether it's helpendhiv.org, like that Red Ribbon Registry that Generio had spoken to. So I think there's just more than one way to get involved. And that was just a few things that came to mind for me.
Yeah, I'm from. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I'm from the South, the country. Like my grandmother said, there's more than one way that you can skin a cat.
Yep.
And another thing that is important, Drissa, is around like advocacy around funding and just speaking up about the HIV vaccine and the vaccine research altogether. And I think that if more people begin to speak up about, hey, we need more
Yes.
money towards an HIV vaccine, or more behavioral science research around people's willingness to take an HIV vaccine. So also just speaking up and be using your voice, say, hey, talk about it amongst your friends. Like even when you go to your provider, like, hey, do you know about HIV vaccine research trials that are happening? So I think the importance of just advocacy, and we learned so much around advocacy from the pandemic, and how like when we are together using our resources for common cause, things can happen. So I think the same framework will be applied, and I use will because I do believe an HIV vaccine is feasible and will happen. So I think that it will take some advocacy, whether it be on the Hill or amongst your communities. We can make it happen though.
Yeah, and just so far from my posts, my posting so far, speaking about HIV vaccine research, I have people inboxing me, like, yo, like that's really a thing. Like, are you just doing that? I'm like, no, it's really a thing. So people are just like, wow, like I did not know. So just like you said, putting it out there and getting people engaged, touching the masses, going into those rooms, and just shouting it from the mountaintop.
Yes. And honestly, just to drive home like that point, just also get comfortable, y'all, like advocating for yourself, and also just being in these spaces. Talk about it after church, talk about it at brunch, talk about it in the club. Like there's so many spaces that you can have it, and the more comfortable, the more familiar you are with talking about it, the more you can advocate, the more you can call out and partner with different organizations so that this word continues to get spread. So yes.
And at the core, I think, I'm sorry. I was going to say that an HIV vaccine provides options, and we do live in a world now that like there's so many options, like, so we need more options. We're like to protect ourselves. We deserve more options. We deserve more options. So the only way to get more options is to have an HIV vaccine will be an additional options to protect yourself against HIV.
Absolutely.
Abe, I think you said it best, and we could close out like that. Options. We need options. We want more options. And also, if you want to continue to get involved in this work, you have options. So following this conversation, we will be dropping our information as well and websites to continue to get involved. You can reach out to Drissa at the Vanderbilt HIV Vaccine Program site. You can reach out to Abe at Treatment Action Group. You can DM Generio. You can reach out to me at Southern AIDS Coalition. Y'all got options, plenty of options, and we are just excited for y'all to join us in this conversation around HIV Vaccine Awareness Day. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate y'all for joining this convo with me. It was quick, but it was spicy, it was juicy, so thank you.
It was a quickie, but it was great.
I think everybody like different things. I said, like for me, it's like depending on the arrow, man. Sometimes in and out is what you need, short and sweet.
Right.
Here we go.
Round with a quick.
Hey. All right, y'all. Thank you.